What's up, guys? Are we live? I think we are. Excellent. Okay, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. What is it? What is it? August? This year is flying by. Lots of good things to share as always. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to talk about some cool things. We're going to talk about probably my favorite topic in the world, which is Taoist sexual energy cultivation. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to get sexy. It's going to get juicy. It's going to get esoteric, but very practical. You guys know how I roll. So, um, how's everybody doing today? Hope you guys are staying well out there. Hope you're enjoying yourselves in this world, in this day and age. And with that, let's get into it. So, cultivating sexual energy, and I'm going to talk about some of like Taoist approach to cultivating sexual energy. I'm going to drop some really cool stuff, some things that could really help you, and for aspects of like vitality, sexual mastery, ejaculation control, semen retention, all these things. Um, I'm definitely no Taoist. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, I don't like to have any sort of like label or I am this. You know what I mean? And I definitely couldn't claim to be a Taoist because I don't I don't have the like incredible balance and harmony of the Tao quite as a lifestyle. And to be honest, I don't know many people who do. You know what I mean? But I do love the philosophy of Taoism. Really vibe with it, and I practice Taoist practices. It's you could say it's kind of a full time thing for me. I practice my ass off every day because I love it, love the effects, and so basically a whole branch of cultivation. Taoism and Taoist practice, kind of like a path of yoga, it's a path of mind, body, spirit connection, and energy cultivation, vitality cultivation. A lot of branches to it, but a certain branch that has been well of much interest to many people, and myself included, is sexual cultivation. And these guys did it right. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Um, so first of all, yeah. First of all, so a lot of this stuff, it's quite ancient. You know what I mean? There's texts like the Yellow Emperor's Classic, a lot of these classic texts talking about a lot of these principles of sexual cultivation, and they're hundreds, maybe thousands of years old. So it's ancient knowledge that it's kind of coming back out, which is pretty cool. But the funny thing now is we live in this time where all this esoteric information is just out in the open. Like I'm just some dude, in Eastern United States, doing a live talking about this stuff. But the thing is like very few people actually practice it. Very few people actually like, because that's what ultimately what it's about, is like having the practice and doing it. Otherwise, it's just words and concepts. You know what I mean? So, anyways, diving into it, why should we cultivate our sexual energy? Why would you want to cultivate your sexual energy? I mean, if it isn't obvious already, which it is for many of you. Well, here's some benefits, and here's some kind of focal points, because there's many things you can focus on. There's many reasons that people may have for practicing cultivating their sexual energy. Besides the obvious, number one is health. It's a good reason alone. Um, it's safe to say that your expression of sexuality can be conducive to vitality and radiance, or it can be destructive, depending on how you engage in it. So, one of the number one things you can get from cultivating your sexual energy and having a healthy sexual experience is much more radiant vitality, health, longevity. Who doesn't want that? Uh, Another very powerful benefit is creativity, because sexual energy is creative energy. And when you are overflowing with this juicy creative life force, you want to create. You feel inspired. You get unique ideas, and you want to express. So it really amplifies your ability to create. And there's this driving aspect of sexual energy. It's going to drive you to be more of yourself, whoever that is. And obviously, another benefit is experiencing much more pleasure and fulfillment in your life. And let's face it, sex is good. Sex is really nice. Who doesn't love sex? You know what I mean? But the problem is that for a lot of people, it's a very fleeting thing. Like for a lot of men, the extent of their sexual experience is jerking off to internet porn, and that's not very fulfilling. The pleasure is very short lived and not very holistic, and it has a lot more negative aspects than positive aspects. Whereas once you harmonize, and especially when you learn the techniques to have non-ejaculatory orgasms, you're not just busting out every time you're having sex, but you leave the session with the potential for more. We could just say, uh, it feels amazing. It feels much more fulfilling. You're able to enjoy as much orgasm, as much pleasure as you want, and like there's no end to it potentially. And um, another benefit of cultivating sexual energy is your spiritual path. Your I'll talk about this more, but what you're doing is you're building up this raw energy, this gene, this potential, this pure essence. And with the alchemical practices of the Taoist path, you can transform this energy into Shen, into consciousness. Well, we'll talk more about that, but basically, it can really amplify your spiritual path, and not just like, yeah, I'm taking ayahuasca and like having some interesting realizations, then going back to like, it's no, I mean like you're actually sustaining a connection with the spiritual realms. You're actually sustaining these higher states of consciousness. You're able to ground that and integrate that into your daily life. That's what it's really about for me. So here's the thing. Uh, so when it comes to cultivating sexual energy, a good starting point is an important focal point of this is rebuilding your vitality, because to have sex, to have arousal, to have orgasm, you have to have this certain level of vitality. Things just don't function well when you're not healthy. You know what I mean? And in the modern world, people are depleted. People are stressed the fuck out. And there's a lot of factors to this. It's important also to mention for men that we have a very unhealthy conditioning around sex. I mean, it's true for everyone. Everyone has an unhealthy conditioning around sex in general on this planet. I think it's safe to say. And we learn about sex through porn. We develop all this shame and all this, perverseness, and we develop a very distorted experience of sexuality, a very impulsive, a very desperate, and often addictive experience of sexuality. And so this is one of the main challenges for men, is overcoming these patterns of sexual depletion, which number one is an addiction to ejaculatory orgasm. Yeah, it feels good. Obviously, it's great. I can't, it's not like I'm saying, oh, I've never enjoyed ejaculating. Like, spent 10 years of my life doing it every day. I've been there, done that. But it is literally throwing your vitality down the drain. You're emptying out your bucket, your kidney gene bucket every time you ejaculate. And if you do it every now and then, no big deal. But over and over and over and over. So one of the main barriers for men is this very visually oriented, instant gratification approach to sexual arousal, where it's like, I need to just, like, as soon as there's the sexual thought, the trigger, I saw an attractive woman. Now I need to ejaculate and get this sensation of arousal out of my body as quickly as possible. So modern, in certain ways, the modern world has made sexual arousal the enemy in an interesting way of seeing things, because basically that's the juice, that sexual arousal, that sexual tension, that we all know what that sweet tickly feeling you get every now and then, or maybe more so now than then, it depends. But that's your sexual vitality. That is your it's a charge, it's a spark. But because again, there's so much shame and constriction and tension and this addictive impulse around sexuality, men become uncomfortable with that. So they either avoid it or they overindulge in it and just empty the battery. Gas tank's constantly empty. Sexual depletion. So obviously, for men, the practice of sexual cultivation really centers around overcoming this addiction to ejaculation and rebuilding vitality, which is done in different ways. I'm going to share more about like different aspects, different practices you can use to rebuild your health, your vitality, your sexual potency. Um, and that to me has been one of the greatest benefits of this practice of Taoist sexual cultivation, is that I significantly improved my libido, my sexual energy, my testosterone. I mean, I was depleted when I was 23 years old. it was like 11 years ago, just getting into these practices, I was depleted. Was very depleted. You know, um, I had low testosterone. I was kind of a soy boy. I was an emotional mess. Uh, I liked purpose. I liked drive, and I was very lazy. I had a lot of these addictive habits. Like, yeah, I was on my spiritual path. I was doing yoga, blah blah blah. But like, I was going nowhere. You know what I mean? And it was when learned practices of energy cultivation that very quickly my vitality started to rebuild. And the biggest change for me was to stop consistently ejaculating. And the beginning was like, oh, I at least going 4 days between ejaculations. Hey, that was big progress for me back in the day. And then that turned into a month, longer, whatever. And I reclaimed my vitality. So that's kind of like the underlying thing you need for proper sexual cultivation is to rebuild your vitality. All right. And another important aspect of this process is harmonizing the mind and the body. And this is, well, it's very important because for a lot of men coming into this, it's like, oh, I just want more. I just want more sexual power. I want more sexual control. I want more pleasure. And that's great. But what is not as commonly talked about is the fact that, well, we have certain conditioning, certain patterns in our mind and body that are not that are very self-destructive. And specifically, when you start introducing more of this sexual energy into your system, it's basically just like putting more fuel on the fire. And again, it's a neutral thing. It can be good, it can be bad. It can be positive, can be negative. It's positive when you have a harmonious, well-functioning, integrated body and mind. But do most people have that? I mean, I certainly didn't when I began this practice, which is why the underlying work of balancing the body and mind, uh, clearing negative emotional patterns, or at least getting clear on them, getting clear on like how you are reacting in maybe destructive ways, where emotions and feelings are stuck in your body and not able to be expressed in a healthy way, where your energy system's blocked, quite simply. And that's an important thing because when your emotions are stuck, when you have all this underlying, like, kind of shadowy aspects, what happens when you start introducing the sexual fire into the mix is that it just strengthens these patterns. They get stronger. They can get more destructive, and it can be very negative, which is why traditionally these systems are always taught like foundations of like, hey, bro, you gotta, let's open up the microcosmic orbit. Let's make a container to circulate this energy through. Work on your Dantian a little bit, build up a little field there so you have something to move through your system. Hey, learn how to like, get rid of that chronic anger, bro. So you're not just like the Hulk just destroying things. You know what I mean? So that's also kind of step one. It's rebuilding the vitality. You're And that's actually part of rebuilding your vitality because it's usually these stresses and these negative emotional patterns that are just stuck in your mind and body that are wearing down your vitality. So that's huge for your health because most chronic illnesses are caused by stress. Simple as that. So it's like you free up the stressors in the system, you feel good. And another important part on this journey, and this is a very Taoist concept, is creating a center within yourself, creating a strong, what I would call like a strong center of gravity. And what does this mean? Well, it relates to the earth element. It also relates in some ways to like the Dantian, the building of the Dantian field. Because to do that, you have to be able to really, really hold your mind in that space without monkey mind, without racing thoughts and things like that. Got to go into stillness. But here's the thing. Most people's center of gravity is outside of themselves. And ask yourself, like, what's driving you to do the things that you do? Why do you dress the way you do? Why do you have the career you have? Why do you, how you spend your time and your energy? Why? What's the driving force from that? Is it from a deep sense of inspiration within yourself because that's authentically what you want to do? Maybe it is. But for a lot of people, that is not the case. It's often external factors. It's like sometimes it's like, well, I just want to make my parents happy. I just want to make my daddy proud, or it's I just want this girl to like me. I just want her to have sex with me, or I just want to be cool. I want to get likes on social media. You know what I mean? And you know, And I'm not saying I'm 100% clear of that, but like I've definitely learned to personally live a life much more of like, okay, what's actually important? You know what I mean? And away from all these like cultural, political, blah, 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 blah expectations, because that's all just external bullshit. It really is. It's all an illusion. And when that's what's driving your whole reality is just the expectations of others, like that your center is outside of you. And I think another good example of this is like if you build up this sense of like validation and ego from something externally, um, like maybe it's a skill, like, well, I'm going to be really good at this thing. And then I can tell people I'm so good at it. And they'll be like, oh, Jimmy, you're just so good at that. And you're so good because of that. So like this becomes this external validation of like, well, because inherently you feel like, well, I don't feel like I'm a great person, but now I have this thing to identify as and it'll impress people. So that's still something outside of yourself. So this is an important thing because again, it comes down like this is important in sexual cultivation because for a lot of men, what's still like driving their sexual experience is this like conditioning of like you're just supposed to like have all this sex and fuck as many women as possible, and like just kind of getting stuck in this emptiness. Ultimately, just this animalistic, excessively lustful emptiness. That's again another huge challenge for men is getting out of this porn conditioned instant gratification model. Okay, so center yourself, young grasshopper. Where's my water? It's around here somewhere. All right. And an important part is coming back to this. One of the great challenges for men on this journey is getting out of the porn, getting out of the visual stimulation, and that it's really interesting. It's quite interesting because look, reflecting on this now, my whole like first experiences of sexual pleasure and sexuality, I mean, for a long time, were very, very, very influenced and based around porn. Like porn I've been exposed to. Number one, my masturbation habits was to go on fucking porn sites and just look for video after video. Of course, back in the day, I'm a young teenager. It was like we had dial-up internet. I live in a small town in Idaho. It's like okay, I have to wait an hour. It's like oh, the page is slowly loading. There's the face. There's the shoulder. Oh, here comes the breast. Oh, it's all pixelated. That was my early years. But now it's like kids have access to porn. It's crazy. It's a crazy world, my friends. Um, where was I going with that? Yeah. So that the porn. What I'm getting at is like even like how I was experiencing sex was very much around like my experience of porn. Like, okay, it's all about ejaculation. Get that sweet money shot in there. And and I was very disconnected from my body, very disconnected from like what's actually happening, very disconnected from how to like actually work with this force of sexual energy that was really driving me to do things, and definitely very disconnected from my partner and like any sort of exchange that were happening. Um, yeah, ask your Remy. Ask your questions anywhere. YouTube, Instagram. I'll get to the questions, guys. I know there's a lot coming in. I'll do a little Q&A here. So yeah, ask them wherever. I'll get to them. And so one of the big challenges for men, I get this from men all the time, both on YouTube and men who are in my programs as well, who are going through this rewiring process where they're learning to get back into their body and not just have this completely head oriented visual fucking body parts that are just in my face. A more embodied experience of sexuality, arousal, and pleasure. And this comes back to having this center within yourself, because porn's putting your center out here, and you get addicted to that. It completely fucks up your arousal chemistry in your brain and your arousal response. And so it's about coming back into the body, reoccupying the space. Be like, oh, what does it feel like to have my leg touched? That actually feels nice. And this is again one of the greatest values of the Taoist practices is they bring you deeply, deeply into your body, because that's what's required for vitality. It's like the famous saying, "Yi Dao Qi Dao," where the mind goes, the qi flows. And when you're just stuck up here in your head and your shoulders, most people are just up here all day. That's where their only awareness is. All of this down here is your vitality. So when all of your chi is stuck up here, you get this rising heat stuck in the head, headaches, insomnia, anger, frustration, anxiety. Your vitality dries up. So what these practices do is reoccupy your body with your awareness. Oh, and that is great for your vitality. Okay. Um, so talking about like the direct sexual aspect of this, it's important for men to release this attachment to ejaculation and transition into the non-ejaculatory model. It's not to say you can never ever ejaculate. It's not, it's not it's not necessarily the case. A lot of the Taoist texts talk about this, how, there's different models of like, if a man ejaculates based on age, like every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. There's different timelines. I like Peng Zhu's model as like I would say is like a minimum. He says that if a man ejaculates no more than twice a month, he will live to a healthy old age. So like that's every 2 weeks. I think most guys could do that at least, and you can go longer, definitely, but going longer kind of requires you to have some alchemical skill to cook that jing into shen. Otherwise, it just kind of builds up and becomes stagnant and doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Here's an interesting thing because talking about this sexual energy as it's a pressure, it's a raw pressure, it's a raw vitality. It's raw. I was talking before about how men have kind of conditioned themselves or been conditioned to experience this as a discomfort, um, a discomfort and arousal. And so there's definitely an adjustment period, and this is part of the Taoist practice, is opening up your whole energy body. So it's not just your dick, your balls, and your pelvic floor holding arousal, but your entire body. So that gives you a lot more space and capacity to feel and hold arousal and be comfortable with it, because that becomes your driving force. I often use this analogy or this, this maybe this reference point, but it's like, how do you feel when you're having sex? When you're like at the height of arousal, maybe you're getting close to busting and you're just like, oh, how does that feel? It feels pretty good. You feel alive. Things are pulsing, things are flowing, your blood's pumping, you're there in the moment, in your body, feeling pretty good. That is vitality. That is vitality. That is arousal. That is nice. Well, how do you feel after you ejaculate? Yeah, there's a certain contentment to it. You're like, oh, whew, that's over with. But uh, as you do this more and more, you often feel empty afterwards. I know that I did when I was 23 years old. I was feeling fucking empty after ejaculating. I was feeling fatigued, lazy, unmotivated, uncreative. So I was like smoking weed, things like that, to like make up for this, to stimulate my system more, to try to just feel something. And it was further tanking my vitality. So you lost something when you ejaculate. And this, again, this is the fuel that you need. If you're going to be an alchemist, if you're going to be an adept, your sexual energy becomes the fuel. Because coming back to this point of this world is chaotic, people are depleted, there's a lot of stressors, there's a lot of things kind of pulling on your energy. You need all of the resources you can get. And as a man, one of the main resources is your sexual energy and not wasting it. Okay? So quit. Put the tissue down, put the OnlyFans down, go do something productive with your life. Okay? And here's the thing. And transitioning to non-ejaculatory sex, because that's really where this is going, as well as like, first of all, it's like there's different stages of training. Initially, you're just kind of like, okay, let me just kind of get my shit together. All right. Let me stop watching porn. Let me rebuild a little bit of vitality. Let me get some jing built up. Maybe I shouldn't ejaculate every day. So you're starting to rebuild your vitality, starting to do your practice, and then you learn, because of course the process is basically you open up a new pathway in your body for your sexual energy to flow through, so that as it's building, it's naturally becoming integrated into your system. So it's filling your endocrine system. It's filling it back up from the root. Your vitality starting to build back up, your clarity of thought, your feeling of like, okay, I feel all right. I've got this. I can do this. It's coming back. And then you learn how to stimulate your sexual energy. So basically, there's the foundation, Sorry if I'm kind of repeating myself here, but we build a container so that what happens is during sexual stimulation, both solo and with a partner, because that's another layer of the training, is like you stimulate that sexual energy, you get those endocrine glands flowing, son, and that's going to stimulate you. Uh, to keep you youthful. Because one of the things of aging is that your hormones dry up, your endocrine glands stop producing. There's many factors to this, toxicity being a huge one, stress, but also simply lack of proper use, overuse, over ejaculating, but also underuse. I believe it is also a use it or lose it situation. And I would say here, a use it properly or use it. And for a man, I the Taoists were big on this, that basically frequent sex is great, super healthy for you, super good for your whole system, as long as you are not ejaculating frequently. Okay, so we're talking non-ejaculatory sex here. So, and this is another. This is one of the biggest challenges for men is, well, shit, like, you know, when I'm having sex, I just want to ejaculate. I just want to bust a nut. Comes back to your conditioning, your habits, and just done things a certain time, and like it's easy to do it that way, but guess what, it's time to do something new. You're creating a new form, you're improving your posture, your sexual form. Okay, and that involves not ejaculating at the end. Okay, um, think of it this way. One of the Taoist principles is basically like not completely like exhausting yourself, not like yin and yang. There's this interplay between yin and yang. Yang is an expansive masculine energy, yin is a contracting feminine energy, but they are actually both part of each other. There's no, it's not yang and then yin, it's yin yangs, yin slash yang. They're both phases of the life force. And I'm going somewhere with this. Basically, the tendency for most people is to like go to absolute yang, exhaust themselves until they can't possibly go anymore. And then they're forced to recover. And that's kind of what's happening with ejaculating, is like you're just fucking uprooting your vitality completely if you're overdoing it. And it's like your body forces you to chill out. I think that's one reason why ejaculation becomes so much more um hard to recover from as you get older, and why some people experience, what is it, post orgasmic illness syndrome, is it's literally the body's way of saying, hey, you son of a bitch, you're abusing this, you're just dumping out all these resources and we don't have enough to replenish it. Like, thanks a lot, asshole. Now we're fucking going bald in our 30s and our hair, testosterone's low. So the body releases these chemicals. It releases prolactin as a way, like, okay, hold off. We ejaculated 4 hours ago. Maybe we could go at least 12 hours without ejaculating. Get away from Pornhub, Jimmy. So where I'm going with this is that it's good to stop before you absolutely exhaust yourself. This is a concept. This is a principle that I try to abide by. Like, when I'm working, I don't try to like just go until I'm absolutely fucking depleted. I have done that, and it usually leads me to burnout. And same thing with sex. It's like, if you stop before you ejaculate, you circulate the energy, you draw it into your body, you still have the desire. You still have more desire. And like early on, I would still have a strong urge to ejaculate. But what you're doing by stopping there, storing that in your body, is you still have the potential for more. So this is where, like, not going until you've absolutely spent, you still retain some. Is you're storing the potential for more. So by ending sex without ejaculating, you could have sex in 10 minutes again if you wanted. You could have sex as much as you want. There's still the potential for more. You haven't uprooted your energy. Okay. And so talking about the spiritual aspect of this, because again, sexual cultivation is just one component of the Taoist system. There's also, varieties of energy cultivation, Taoist internal alchemy, which I personally practice. And think about your vitality, your genes specifically, which you cultivate a lot of when you're doing these sexual practices. Jing is potential, it's essence, and it's like the fuel to burn your fire. It's like the wood for your fire. And if you think of Jing as the wood, the fire is your chi. Well, maybe we could say the light emitted or the energy created from that is the Shen, your consciousness, your spirit. And so, I, you know, talking about spiritual practice is an interesting thing in the modern world, because for spiritual practice, for some people, it's just like having interesting thoughts and like, oh, I have these understandings and things like that. But for me, it's been about like, how do I literally step into these higher dimensions of existence? How do I step into higher dimensions of consciousness, having greater layers of maybe influence, receiving information from the life force directly? I mean, this is what the great masters did. You know what I mean? They bring the stuff in from the great eternal data bank that the universe is. That's spirituality in my opinion. And so it's something you must do for yourself. You're not going to get it from a book. I mean, you may get some techniques, but it's ultimately only going to come there from practice to really like, you get your channels, your energy channels opened up. You get these thrusting core channels opened up to this higher connection. It's like improving your internet connection to double, triple, quadruple the information coming in. So what I'm doing in my practice is I'm building Jing with certain practices, sexual cultivation being a big one. But then the Jing improves your chi capacity because you transform that Jing into chi. So you have more energy to move through your system. Like my chi gets thicker. I feel more in my hands, my forearms, my legs, well, my whole body. My whole body now lights the fuck up when I do qigong. It's a very tangible thing. And this has increased more and more as I built more Jing. But what's interesting to me is when I do these alchemical practices, the more meditative, very subtle, very like, it takes a little bit to really like get this stuff going. Well, the more and more I built my Jing, build my energy up, the more this stuff starts to combust to where I'm having these like incredible spiritual experiences, incredible like information coming to me from the inner planes, all kinds of shit. I was at a retreat. It was like a month ago doing some high level Taoist alchemy with one of my teachers. And I'm sitting here doing this practice, kind of working with celestial energies. And there's a certain practice where we're, creating these counter forces in the body in the central channel to build some friction. And you start to hear a tone, sound current. A lot of yogic practices are based on listening to the sound current and following it back to source. So I'm listening to the sound current, and then it starts to crystallize as like a sensation. I hear it kind of like phasing around. Then all of a sudden it feels like this crown on my head that's pulsating. It's thick, it starts vibrating and tingling. And then I feel like these currents of energy coming into my Niwan, the upper dantian, the pineal gland area. And then all of a sudden just starts to like vibrate. And I feel every cell, like this energy is just like shooting down from my Niwan point up in the brain, shooting into my body, shooting in my energy channels, feeling electrical. But then it's like the sound current becomes loud. It's just all these different tones, all this it's like music of this cosmos pouring into my energy body, because everything is sound. It's the basis of all things. Sound is vibration, and when it vibrates low enough, it crystallizes into matter. And I'm experiencing this in my body. Like my whole body started to feel like one of those cymatic diagrams. I felt my bones vibrating in like geometric patterns, and I should mention at the same time that I feel like I'm on LSD. You know what I mean? I'm tripping balls. Okay, I didn't do any drugs. I haven't done drugs in years, but I know what it's like. So I'm getting high as fuck. I'm just doing internal alchemy. And it took me a long time to be able to get these practices to really work where I'm having these types of experiences and just going fucking deep with it. And part of that is building up your Jing, to build up your chi and your mind power so that you have enough Shen, this consciousness to use your will and your intent to shape your reality into being. And we're getting a little esoteric here, but that's what happens. This is the true spiritual path, is like you you become godlike in some ways. You know what I mean? Like in that you have incredible influential power and you affect reality in certain ways. So build up your Jing, you get more chi, you get more Shin, you get more spiritual causality. That's what it's about. Okay. All right. Covered a lot there. Let's end with some practical notes. So some practice, because again, all this is just theoretical information, and like it's cool, it's inspiring, it can be inspiring, but if you don't practice, if you aren't doing something with it, then it's fucking pointless. It's just entertainment, it's just mindless entertainment. And like, hey, whatever, if you enjoy that, that's great. But like, I'm practicing, I'm putting in 3 or 4 hours of practice a day. Okay. So if you don't start to have a practice from this, you're not going to get anywhere with it. You're going to stay where you're at. So that's what it's really about. It's having a practice. And the Taoist techniques for sexual cultivation. Let's give an overview. Number 1, testicle massage. It's a great starting point. You just massage your balls, boys. I do this every morning. every evening. It's going to stimulate your endocrine glands, which your testicles are. Your sperm production, your testosterone production tends to increase. You'll have more awareness of your sexual center. Massage your balls. And it's very nice. Classical Taoist technique. What I usually, there's a few different ways. It's kind of taking between the fingers and the thumbs and press with some pressure and rotate like this. And I'll kind of like put them between my hands and friction them like that. Enough pressure that it feels a little bit achy, but don't damage yourself. Don't tie your vas deferens in a knot, torsion. Don't get any of that shit. Just be careful. Massage your balls mindfully and with with intentionality. Acupressure and acupuncture. There's certain because the whole body is basically an electrical grid. It's a bioelectrical grid. This is the meridian system, the meridian network. So you can learn on your own to activate some hot spots. Acupressure, it's pretty simple. Look up acupressure for sexual vitality. Some of my favorite points are basically all around the navel, around the pubic area, the sacrum area. There's lots of hot spots here. I'll massage this again pretty much daily. The more awareness you have lower in your body, the more your sexual vitality is going to increase. And again, going to an acupuncturist, like working with a Chinese medicine practitioner, some kind of like naturopathic practitioner, to get your health back on track, to get your vitality and harmony and balance in your body, is not a bad idea. Herbs and diet's important. You want to build your sexual energy, and you need your saturated fats. I know that's a no mainstream medicine, blah blah, which is just funded by fucking seed oil corporations and all kinds of shit. Saturated fats. I'll share my personal like Jing superfoods are pasture-raised meats, especially liver. Beef liver is amazing. Eggs, I eat those like every day, and like oh, great for testosterone. Goji berries, Taoist staple. Eat your goji berries. As far as herbs, there's different herb formulas. You're going to want to focus on like if you need to build more sexual vitality, which a lot of men do. Kidney, usually kidney yin building herbal formulas. There's a lot of like Shobu formula is a good one. There's also kidney yang formulas, which kind of supports a different aspect. Kidney yin's more like the fuel, whereas kidney yang is like the fire that burns it up, so the mobilizing it. So that's going to help rebuild your vitality. Managing your mind. I just see this. Do I take vitamin D3? If I'm not getting plenty of sun, then yes, I do take vitamin D3. Most people are deficient in this, and that's essential for hormones. So yeah, minerals, zinc, magnesium, selenium, boron, iodine. You need to have all these, and most people aren't getting them from diet because the soil is becoming depleted. So most of these things I supplement myself. Managing the mind, like coming back to like Qigong is ultimately training you to hold your mind within your body. One of the biggest energy expenditures for modern people is excessive mental activity, excessive just like too much focus out here, too much stress, too much worry up in the head, burns up your sexual vitality. May seem completely unrelated, but like go on a camping trip for a few days, get out to nature, back in your body, out of the like stress and distraction and stimulation, and I guarantee you're going to feel more vital. Qigong is a pretty core staple of the sexual kung fu system and is Taoist practice in general. I definitely recommend having a Qigong practice that's going to really support you in rebuilding your vitality, train you to have more awareness within your body, calm your mind. And also it's a foundation for sexual energy circulation, because the skills you develop in Qigong effortlessly transfer over into developing better arousal control, controlling your ejaculation, being able to circulate your orgasm through your body, all that stuff, being more grounded. Like Qigong and sexual cultivation are just, the two peas in a pod or two nuts in a sack. You know what I'm saying? Testicle breathing. This is like one of the core exercises of sexual kung fu is testicle breathing. And I just dropped a video on this recently. Maybe it was last week. I don't remember. Testicle breathing. Check out my video of that. Just made a new guided practice on this. But that is like one of the foundational practices for circulating this sexual energy throughout your body. You get really good at testicle breathing. Semen retention becomes much more effortless because now you're mobilizing that energy instead of it just being stuck in your balls. And then drawing sexual energy. Here's something practical. Here's something you can take away. Next time you're having sex or you're choking your chicken, you're waxing your carrot, whatever you're doing. Next time you're experiencing sexual stimulation, when you feel your arousal building up and like maybe you're kind of getting close to orgasm, stop and take some deep breaths and focus on moving your mind from your sexual center up in your body, just like up your spine like a wave. Breathe it up. Breathe it up. Breathe it up. And then pause and just feel like, oh, how do I feel right now? That's one of the bases of starting to bring this sexual energy through your body. And if you don't ejaculate after that, guess what? You're gonna be charged up with that sexual energy. So there's some practical steps. Um, there you go. And I will say that I'm going to get into questions now, but no, I dropped a lot here. There's a lot of information. Obviously, sexual kung fu is a pretty comprehensive system. There's a lot to it, but again, start with the qigong practice. Start with tactical breathing. Start with cleaning up your diet, your lifestyle. Managing yourself a little bit, and you're gonna get a lot of benefit from it. Uh, Check out my qigong playlist. I have a lot of different routines on there that will really support this process within you. And my multi-orgasmic man course is a pretty comprehensive system of training in Taoist sexual cultivation. So watch out for that. You find more information, on that on my website. Okay, let's get into questions. Oh, I'm going to China in a week and a half. I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty pumped. So I'm going to be I'm going on a Taoist trip to China for 2.5 weeks. Going to go all these temples, sacred mountains. It's gonna be amazing. I'm pretty pumped. Been wanting to do this for years and years. And not only that, but I'm making a little pit stop in Egypt on the way there. So I'm gonna go charge up at the pyramids. So it's gonna be a pretty epic week. Well, month. It's gonna be a month. Ardit saying I did sexual cultivation for 1 to 2 months and it did no good for me. Maybe you can help me. Well, what were you doing? Sexual cultivation can be a very broad term that can mean a lot of different things for different people. So I need a little more like context there. What were you doing? Okay, Ani Kutin's asking, can you talk about where'd it go? Can you talk about the neck lock, the diaphragm lock, the root lock? Yeah, I mean, this is more of a yogic kind of tantric practice. To be honest, I don't use this stuff personally in my own practice anymore. Neck lock is this. That's the neck lock. Diaphragm lock. I mean, it depends on the school you ask. For some, it's like a for some it's like a pushing the belly out and pushing down from above. For some, it's actually like pulling the diaphragm in. The root lock, it mostly is taught as an overt physical practice, which is just like a Kegel exercise or like squeezing around the anal muscles. But I personally feel that this is a gross misunder. This is how it's usually presented, and I personally feel one of the reasons why I don't use these things in my practice much at all anymore is that I think that this is a gross misunderstanding and an overly physicality of what's supposed to be an internal process. Um, let's take for example the root lock, the Huyin point, the perineum. When they say engage the perineum, the Huyin, like squeeze the pelvic floor, like squeeze your like a Kegel, like it's tension, and that's not a great thing to do because it strengthens your sympathetic pathway of a stress response. It's going to make your penis more sensitive, and it tends to program in this squeezing in the pelvic floor during sex, which is actually going to make premature ejaculation worse. It's going to be way harder to control your ejaculation when you're doing this type of thing. And I've trained in many different systems, and when I got into some really pretty cool Neigong practices several years ago, I learned that after kind of building enough chi in the Dantian, there's this magnetic quality to these kind of quadrants around the Dantian, Qi Hai, Ming Men, Hu Yin, and above as well. And you activate them actually quite energetically because when you feel the Dantian, you've built it through the practices of working with the Dantian. Um, it becomes a tangible reality for you. It's just part of your daily practice. Like, yeah, I feel this freaking field that's like cooking and bubbling and magnetic, and you can use your mind to manipulate it in a certain sense. And so that's how you're activating the Hu Yin point. Is this? It is a very 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 slight, like physical, almost like a gesture. We could say like 1% of a Kegel, very 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 subtle. But with practice, you feel an energetic, magnetic like pulsation there, which is moving something up the back of your body. I believe that's how these things were meant to be functioning. It's more subtle, energetic things that are happening in your energy body once you develop enough chi and like solidify this energy body to do these things. But I think somewhere along the line, someone misunderstood the stuff because maybe they didn't get deep enough into the practice. They're like, oh, engage the perineum. Well, that means squeeze your fucking Kegel like you're trying to hold in a poop. You know what I mean? That's my belief. I could be wrong, but yeah, my practice has become a lot more subtle, and I've changed how I'm teaching things. And for me, it's created phenomenal results. And many other men I've talked to who are doing this as well. People who've gone through my programs. Spiritual journey, what's up? Okay, Rev Genshi says yes, but people need to feel their root chakra, so it's a starting point. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And this was a tip that what someone gave me was just like squeeze it once and then you feel it, and then over time develop the awareness of it. For sure, for sure. I'm not saying that like squeezing your pelvic floor is going to kill you. You're going to drop dead. Like, don't ever do it. I just, again, you guys, you may or may not know that I am not a proponent of doing Kegel exercises like strong repetitions of like gripping the life out of your pelvic floor. Okay, where am I? Feel free to type in your questions. I'm just going to go down the list here. Ardit says, "Did sexual kung fu make? Did I have I made? Have I had any bad experiences with sexual cultivation?" Well, I mean, nothing like dangerous or life threatening. When I was in the beginning, when I was working with like Montauk Chi's books, the big draw where it's like you fucking squeeze everything and just like shove the sexual energy up into your brain. I remember I was like, well, at the time I was like, what was I doing at that point? I just remember I was on my parents' farm. I'm out in like a ditch, out in the middle of this field. I'm well away from anyone else. It's like a summer day. I'm down there naked practicing out in the wood, out in the wilderness. It's pretty sweet actually. And then I'm trying out this power lock, and I'm just like, it's super forceful. And then I do it, and the next thing I know, I'm like laying on the ground with a pulsing headache, like I passed out. So like, yeah, I did it right, but like that method's so forceful. So I've changed the way I'm doing it a little bit. Um, bad experiences. I mean, sure, I've had my challenges and things like that, but nothing like dangerous or anything. Everything's up and down in life. You know what I mean? Rev Jen, she says Kundalini syndrome. Yeah, I've definitely had Kundalini syndrome, but that was more so when I was doing a lot more like fiery, forceful practices. Like what the stuff I teach now and the stuff I practice now is very gentle and haven't had any like negative effects from it. Nostalgia says, Chen is Chen the same as is Chen the same as Ohas in yoga? Chen. You mean Jing? I'm not sure what Chen is in this context, but I'm not sure if it correlates perfectly. But I've heard that like kind of like what I've heard from Ohas and yoga, it does seem to like correspond somewhat to the concept of Jing in Taoist cosmology. Say some. Say some says, I'm not doing it for the endless sex part yet. I'm doing it for the internal healing process and trying to break bad habits. Yeah, I mean, that's, a solid reason to do it. And that's kind of what got me started on the journey, as well as an interest in better sex. Nostalgia says sometimes it's hard to stay relaxed and focused on raising the energy. Yeah, I mean, it's all a process. It's training. This is why it's kung fu, sexual kung fu, skill, discipline attained over a period of time of training. And guess what? Training comes with its challenges. It comes with its up and downs. Like this is like an athlete. You're becoming a fucking Olympic athlete doing this stuff, and not every day is going to be a victory. That's just part of the process. That's part of the human experience. It's great. Remy says, "Hey, what are your opinion on nipples on man?" I'm not exactly sure what the question is here. Like, what do I think about men's nipples, or like nipple stimulation? I'm not sure what the context of this question is here, but maybe talking about let's talk about nipple stimulation. This is an interesting subject, and I haven't talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it because, well, where do I want to go with this? I will say that I, as a man, find nipples on a woman very attractive. I like to, I like them. What do I say? But as far as my own nipples, um, they they are an erogenous zone. And I was like looking into this because I've heard of people who talk about having nipple orgasms. And so I was like reading about this and I tried it out. I was like, all right. These people say that like theoretically anything can become erogenous. This is like the um the prostate orgasm for men. Like initially it's kind of like a numb dead zone, but with practice and bringing more awareness in there, bringing arousal into it. I teach this in my cosmic orgasm course. The prostate becomes an incredibly erogenous zone, and you can have mind-blowing, crazy, psychedelic, like 100 times more powerful than an ejaculatory orgasm without ejaculating. Like prostate orgasms are crazy, but there's this whole process of rewiring. So theoretically, you can do that with other parts of your body as well, like rewire them to be a pleasure generator. So I was experimenting with pleasuring my nipples. I oiled them up, and I was just like spent like 30 minutes just like stimulating my nipples. And at first, I'm like, okay, it isn't much. But by the end of that 30 minutes, like it was feeling pretty good. I was feeling some sensations in this region that I had never felt before. And because, I'm busy doing a million things, it's not something that I continue with, but maybe I should bring that back into my routine. But yes, your nipples can become in a very erogenous area. And I had some very orgasmic sensations doing that. And that was one, maybe like a few days I was doing this. So if I did that more consistently, which I should probably do, maybe I will. I'll keep you guys updated. Uh, it could be a powerful orgasm generator. We just talk about it all here. This is why I love doing this. You know what I mean? It's like I have no shame. I'm not whatever. You know what I mean? Not a lot of spaces people could talk about this stuff. And I appreciate you guys for being here, being part of this, being part of the journey, and sharing your guys' journey as well. Because we're all in this together. We're all just we're all here stumbling in the dark of the universe, just doing our best. You know what I mean? But I'm here with you. I got your back. B. Harvey says, I had third eye awakening doing semen retention. Life changed forever. That's awesome. I'm curious to hear more about like what that means for you. B. Harvey says, do you still practice deep earth pulsing? And could you make an updated video on this? Okay. Yeah, yeah, it is one of my go-to Qigong forms, deep earth pulsing. Yeah, it has been a while since I made that video. I should probably do an updated one because it's a phenomenal phenomenal qigong form. It really helps you get out of your head, really sink and ground your energy. It's a major grounding qigong form, and it can also be a major sexual vitality booster. In my multi-orgasmic man course, I teach you how to like kind of integrate it with testicle breathing to absorb and build sexual energy directly from the earth chi. It's pretty badass. So yeah, maybe I'll make an updated video on that. It's killer qigong form. The other day I was doing it for like 30 minutes, just like boom, 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 building up some serious gene. This one time, well, I was having a conversation with some friends the other week, and they're talking about like how quickly I've been able to ejaculate or how quickly I've been able to ejaculate, how quickly I've been able to recover from ejaculation. I was telling a story about this is a while ago. It was like 8 years ago, where I was um, it was early on in my sexual kung fu days. I was having sex with my partner at the time, and I blew when I didn't mean to blow, and I was like, well, shit, like she's gonna want more tonight, like I knew what was going on, and I'm like, I got to recover this fast. So I ate a bunch of goji berries, and I did deep earth pulsing for like 30 minutes, just drawing earth energy into my balls. And that night I was back to 100% potency, baby. What's up, Alex Katsanos, my brother? Alex is VIP these days. We had a good conversation the other day. Wayne Gray, what would the maximum times to ejaculate a week without depleting energy? Good question. Um, it depends on your age, health, various factors, but guidelines that I would use currently, I think that men in their 20s, for men, a man in his 20s, once a week at the maximum. 30s once, well, I think okay, maybe this is more an ideal. Let's go with bare minimum because this isn't going to be realistic for some people who are just starting on this. One of the formulas I like is this was Dr. Stephen Chang's formula, which is you take your age, you multiply it by 0.2, and the number that you get is the minimum number you should go between ejaculating, minimum number of days. So, how old am I now? I'm 35. 35 times zero point 0.2, it's about six, maybe like 6.2 or something. So it means I should go at least 6.2 days before ejaculating. But I personally go much longer than that. Um, so so I think a good starting point is trying to go for at least a week between ejaculations, kind of making that your regular thing. Once you're getting into sexual kung fu, developing, this is the biggest thing, is once you develop the ejaculation control, the ability to circulate your sexual energy, like then you can choose when you're going to ejaculate. But there's definitely a transition period. So in your 20s, you could probably get away with it, every 4 days or so if you really wanted to. But I feel like these timelines are changing though because there's more depletion and stress than ever. So I think a week at a bare minimum. I think going 2 weeks is a good goal to aim for, and going beyond that, if you have like good energies, cultivation skills, you can go longer than that. But just for like someone who's not a serious practitioner, going once or 2 weeks between ejaculations is going to be a good accomplishment. If you're sexually active. B. Harvey's asking, do you do normal meditation as well or a Taoist form? I mean, what's normal meditation? You know what I mean? It's like, um, that's a speculative term, but if you're talking about just like general like mindfulness sort of meditation where you just sit and empty your mind, like yeah, I do that as well. Like I do that a lot in my standing practice, my Zhan Zhuang practice, where I just been going out in the forest behind my house and just standing and just getting into the posture, sinking my chi, releasing out of my upper body, down into the dawn chi and down into the earth, and just soft gaze, just kind of go into that state of absorption. So yeah, I do that as well. Okay, Rod Cal Cagno. Sorry if I'm not saying that right. Um, is saying, okay, I've been practicing for a while now. Sometimes it works beautifully, but sometimes I feel trapped in my nerves and back to old patterns. Can you talk about building confidence? Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, yeah, of course. So, first of all, glad to hear you're doing the practice. It's what it's all about. You've been practicing for a while. That's super awesome. So, congratulations. And as far as uh, getting trapped in the nerves, back to old habits, I mean, this is common. It's nothing unusual. This is just a part of the process of like, the journey of mastery it's not linear. It's a spiral. It's like you go through times of progress and like, yeah, I'm kicking ass. And then it's like you have a day where you take a step back. Maybe it's a week or a month where you're just super challenged. And then those challenges often, like ideally, when the challenge comes in, there's kind of two things, two reactions you can have. One is like, well, okay, fuck this, I'm giving up. Or it's like you see the challenge as the opportunity to like even step up even more in your practice and really like solidify yourself, because they're always going to be there. And and the longer your practice goes, kind of the more high level the challenges become. Um, so see every challenge as an opportunity It's all training. It all is. So just having love and respect for yourself and compassion for yourself, but also building confidence. Again, this just comes with practice, and the most important thing is the more you can develop your grounding and your presence in every situation, because the easy thing to do is to go into our unconscious reactions, to go on autopilot mode, where we just go back to our subconscious, like tension based conditionings and things like that. And the monkey mind takes over and we get kind of frozen in fear. And when that happens during sex, you get into stress mode and then you're like right at the edge of ejaculating. And no one would know this better than myself because it happened to me a lot throughout my journey, and there's occasionally still times where it happens. But now I'm a lot more aware of like what are the factors that may put that into place. Like when am I a bit more stressed out? When do I need to just kind of like, okay, breathe a little bit? Maybe instead of engaging in sex right now, I need to just like kind of come back into my center a little bit and then take action. You know what I mean? So I've gotten way, 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 way better at navigating it to where it is kind of a rare thing to happen. But there's always going to be the challenges. So it is just again being in your center at all times. Easy to say, not easy to do. Um, Always having the kind of go-to things to when you are getting in that monkey mind and that self-doubt, that kind of that tension response, and some good go-to things. This is a big focus of the Sex God course, is kind of these self-sabotaging patterns and the monkey mind and stuff. Um, but go-tos are simple as the breath, feeling your feet on the earth, and releasing tension from your body, because these stress responses, these states of like that you get into, the self-doubt, whatever it is, it always correlates to a state of physical tension. And the simplest way to release it is to just do a body scan. For me, my hot spots are my face, like up here, my diaphragm, and my pelvic floor. And I just when I'm in this, like I do this when I'm out in public or in a challenging situation, it's just like release, 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 over and over and over again, and breathe, because that gives you something to focus on instead of going off into the monkey mind, which tends to just snowball and grow greater and greater when it let it drive you. So it's about having something to do in the moment to reestablish your center and your space, and occupy the space in the present moment instead of letting the past occupy it. And that's just another aspect of training. So basically just keep going, man, keep doing it. I'm guessing that you're doing really well, and it's like, yeah, we all have the occasional challenges, and there's always going to be challenges, and be okay with that. But yeah, I hope that's helpful. Goodwill One says, a Taoist teacher told me women are capable of more pleasure than men, but that doesn't seem right. If the energy is balanced, if a man is in control of his ejaculation, wouldn't it be equal? I don't know. I haven't been a woman, but yeah, maybe I'll get one of them sex changes you hear about, and I'll let you know. That's a loaded gun, but I don't know. How can anyone know that? That's the ultimate question. Is like, well, maybe in modern times, but that's a whole nother box to open up. Ultimately, I don't believe anyone really knows the answer to that. You know what I mean? So I think it's true that naturally most women, well, even that though, it's there's nothing's ever really as black and white as this. You know what I mean? It's like it's easy to say, like, because even a lot of the, like, the Taoist books talk about, like, yes, women are naturally way more sexually powerful and liberated, but a lot of women have a lot of hangups, sexuality. They have a lot of contractions in their womb space, and it's like it seems like everyone's kind of equally neurotic and kind of sexually traumatized in various ways. So maybe we can all be equal in that, but you know I don't know. Don't let it get to your head. However, men can experience dramatically powerful levels of pleasure. And this is what the path allows you to open up. So don't worry about it. Don't obsess over like, is the woman having more pleasure than me? And just, like it's ultimately like how much pleasure can you open up to? And that really comes down to like um releasing tension patterns, releasing constrictions, and allowing yourself to open up and free yourself to fully feel. And that takes some vulnerability. And we could say that women are naturally often more vulnerable, more emotional, more internal, and that allows them to naturally often be deeper in their pleasure than men. But again, it's not so black and white. Joey Johnson, what's up? My Friday is going pretty good. It's been a good day. I crushed some practice this morning, went to the gym, crushed a workout, got some body work, got some deep tissue release from this cool wizard guy who's in town. What else did I do? Had a Tai Chi group class, and now I'm here going live. It's a good day. Okay, nostalgia's asking exercises that create Chen. Are you talking about Jing? Jing? I haven't said Chen on this, but there's a lot of the Montauk Chia books say Ching, Ching, which is just it's a different. It's the what's the word? The pinyin, the different like translations of Chinese characters, like how there's Bagua, Bagua, then there's Pakwa, Pakua, or like Qigong, Qigong, or Chikunj, Qi Kung. Um, so that maybe the Qing versus Jing. I mentioned a lot of things like herbs, doing qigong practices, things like that. Dantian work helps to really like kind of consolidate and build up your jing and qi as well. Ooh. Chosen One says, talk about highest timeline semen retention infused manifestation techniques. Um, well, I can just talk about like highest timeline semen retention. Yeah, so just manifestation. And obviously, it seems that kind of talking. Okay, I was talking earlier about Jing Qi Shen and like having more Jing building up to be able to build more Shen. This gives you more will, which means more creative ability. Okay, so like semen retention can give you more creative power, but here's an interesting caveat: it's not as black and white as that because what's keeping you from manifesting things in the first place? Like we know that we're all energy and we're all one and we're infinitely powerful, but like, well, why aren't you manifesting a fucking $1 million in your hand or like flying in the clouds? You know what I mean? So it's like obviously there's some resistance there, and this is the greatest challenge. This is probably the greatest barrier we face as a species is resistance, belief that I cannot do that. It truly is like, I mean, it's like Star Wars. Yoda's telling Luke like he just lifted his fucking his starship out of the swamp, this little dude, and Luke's like, I can't believe it. And Yoda says, that's why you fail. Because you can't believe it, because you have the resistance to belief. Or like in the Matrix, when Neo's trying to make the jump from roof to roof, and Morpheus tells him, don't, I don't know if it's that point in the movie, but at some point he says, don't think you are, know you are. So it's like, it's belief. And so where I'm going with this, and this has been a huge thing in my process because, I've been releasing all kinds of conditioning and bullshit that's been preventing me from getting where I want to go. And I've made tremendous progress in my life. Like I couldn't have imagined living the life I'm living right now, 10 years ago. Like I mean that sincerely. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. Um, if you have all these resistances, like you have the desire for something, but what's common is there's an underlying belief that you don't deserve that you aren't deserving of it, or that there's not enough of it, or that it's not really possible. So there's this underlying resistance. And talking about sexual energy being an amplifier, it can amplify your shadow patterns, your negative emotions. It can amplify your negative belief systems if you aren't careful in how you're managing yourself. So semen retention isn't always going to make you a better manifester if you are unintegrated. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. But coming back to this point of what I've found is that The more Jing you have, the more you can transmute it into Qi and Shen. Consciousness, the more you can affect the realms of consciousness, which is what all things are created from. Everything starts as a thought, an idea, and that eventually can crystallize into physical reality. And the more, I think, the more integrated you are on a Jing Qi Shen level, which means you're not only spiritually evolved, we could say expansive, involved in the spiritual realms, but you're physically embodied. And that's a rare quality. There's tons of people who can, fucking astral project to the eighth dimension, but they can't seem to have a job or like hold a conversation. We all know that, friend. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's a lack of physical embodiment. So, you need both. You need and the more physically embodied you are, the deeper the roots of the tree grow, the deeper into the heavens it can expand. And that's really what Taoism is about. Um, so, yeah, technique, get your mind and body integrated. And that's a deep process that happens on multiple dimensions. And that's what Taoist alchemy is about, which I will add into my trainings in the future. I've been talking more about the stuff because it's a huge part of my practice, but a lot of people aren't going to go down the depth of the path that it is because it's very advanced and it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of practice to do it. But if you guys are interested, I'm definitely going to be venturing into that direction of the more esoteric, the Taoist internal alchemy stuff. It's badass. But the most practical of the practical when it comes to manifestation. Whew. Well, first of all, I would definitely recommend getting my primordial alchemy training. It's $99. It's on my website, Primordial Alchemy. You're going to learn the primordial qigong form, which is a phenomenal magic form that I've created nothing short of miracles in my life working with that form. I tell more of the stories there. Um, so I teach that form, which I believe has been one of my accelerators of like growth and manifesting specific things. And I also teach a lot of like manifestation principles in that. But the most direct thing, the most important thing is it's the simplest thing. It's just, first of all, being very clear on the things you want, focusing on one thing very intensively. And the more tangibly you can put yourself in a state of feeling that you've accomplished it. So I do this every morning, sometimes the evening as well. After my, 2 or 3 hour practice, I just visualize myself having achieved what it is that I want as clearly as possible, but not just mentally. It has to be emotional. You have to feel the gratitude, feel that you have to create a vibration. You have to create a vibration that you experience that and feel the gratitude and the excitement and the fuck yes, I did it. Oh yeah. And also like an effortless. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, I've achieved this, of course. Like feel comfortable in your nervous system with it. So the more you can do that, it's creating a ripple in the universe and creating that foundation in the kind of the Shen level, the spiritual level, which can then start to crystallize, drip down. The timelines can start working together to where you are on the path towards that. But you also have to take action. You must take action towards that thing. And you don't always have to have like a super specific plan, but it's like you have to take some kind of action to show that like you're serious about that. It's repetition, repetition, repetition. All right. We're going deep today, aren't we? I only know how to do it deep, guys. You know that. Just ask your mom. Just kidding. Mom jokes were a huge thing when I was in high school. I'm sorry, guys. 18 Mauer, what's up, brother? Yes, you was my boy. Mikhail is asking, how often do you dream? Do you know how to lucid dream? I dream every night. Having some fucking, been having doozies of dreams. Let me tell you. Do I know how to lucid dream? Yes, I do know how to lucid dream. I've been into lucid dreaming since I was 18 years old, and I got really good at it back in those days. Um, See, I know how to do it. I don't do it that much these days. It happens spontaneously, when I kind of put energy towards it. But yeah, lucid dreaming is cool. It's really cool. It's super super badass. But I just have a lot of things going on in my life. It's something I have to really be focusing on to like do solidly. I imagine later on in life I'm going to really solidify my dream practice. But the technique that always worked for me, and Chosen One's asking for dream yoga tips. The technique, so this fits in. The thing that always worked for me was because it's really difficult to you go to bed at night. You're not going to get deep REM sleep until several hours because there's all this, kind of you go into like the more shallow sleep, just clearing fatigue from your body and mind. So you don't get to like the good dream sleep for like often like 4 or 5 hours. So I would set an alarm. It's like the wake back to bed technique or whatever. I would set my alarm usually about 5 hours after going to bed. It would wake me up and I would stay up, I think about 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes was my sweet spot to where I would stay awake, wake myself up because you need to have enough kind of mental awareness. Because if you just wake up for a little bit and go back to sleep, you're too groggy. Lucid dreaming is this interesting thing where you need, obviously, you have to be able to fall asleep, but you have to be cognitive, focused, and conscious enough to where you retain will and intention and focus and memory because you have to I'll talk about going directly into the dream state from awareness, from awake state, which is a trip. But yeah, you have to be able to like, you know, go to sleep, but not just conk out. You have to maintain lucidity. So when you're awake for 20 to 30 minutes, you become aware and alert enough that your cognition's much more online. And then you go into your dream with the intention of, okay, I'm going to wake up in my dream mentally, be lucid, and do whatever you're going to do in your lucid dream. But a few times I went directly into the dream state consciously, like from laying in my bed, relaxing my body, progressive relaxation to going into the dream, complete consciousness through the whole thing. And it was the weirdest fucking thing I've ever experienced. Maybe not as weird as you guys remember Salvia Divinorum? That was a trip. That's a story for another time. It was like this psychedelic drug. It's fucking crazy. I had okay. I'll talk about that trip in a minute because it's fun to talk about these stories. I was a wild man back in the day. Where was I going? Anyway, so going into a dream state consciously, like all of a sudden my body feels like it's just fucking vibrating and like there's electricity just like I'm hooked up to a 100-volt battery and it sounds like things are like banging on the walls. There's like voices. It's the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. And then all of a sudden, poof, I pop out and I'm floating above my body in the room. I'm like, oh, cool. So maybe, I don't know, astral projection, lucid dreaming. The line's kind of blurry between the two. You're definitely playing in the astral realms in both. That's pretty cool, but challenging. All right. I'll talk about this. I haven't talked about. I used to like psychedelic drugs, but I don't do them anymore because I think they're depleting. But there was a time and place, I suppose. So when I was like 19 years old, there was this whole fad around Salvia Divinorum, which was a legal psychedelic. I don't know if it's still legal. I don't know if people are still doing it, but it was a trend at that time. Like people would like smoke it. People would take videos of themselves doing it, and they're just like, because you go to hyperspace, you go to the 12th dimension for about 3 minutes, and then you're back and you're totally sober. But it's crazy. So they made these like it's like 100 times concentrated extracts. So me and my friend are on a camping trip. We're like, let's try this thing out. So we load it up. We're smoking it, and all of a sudden, this feeling of like deep unwellness comes over me, and like I'm like something's seriously wrong. And I turn to my friend. I'm like, dude, like put it down. Don't do it. He's already smoked it. And all of a sudden, I feel like all of it, like it's like these lines of energy. And now I know now that they were like hitting my acupoints. They were like there's like all these like needles, these like tendrils, these cables inject into my acupoints and like boom, pull me. It's like my energy body was pulled out of my physical body. Is very interesting. And then all of a sudden, I'm in hyperspace. I don't remember who I was. Don't remember nothing. No memory. I'm just in this like Greek garden, this Eden landscape, intense feelings. And then I'm flowing through this endless tunnel of Easter, those like Easter Island statues. I'm floating through this endless tunnel of those, and they're all making sounds in unison. It's like, ruh, ruh, ruh. I'm going through this tunnel of Easter Island heads, and then I'm back in my body. And that was my Salvia Divinorum trip. It was crazy. Don't do drugs, kids. It'll fry your brain. You'll end up like Jonathan White. But I'm very sober these days. I just do my qigong. All right. Oh, and this is fitting. Alex Kitsanos. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure Giza's going to be very powerful. Chosen One says, talk about semen retention and sobriety. So I've talked about my drug phase, brings me right back into don't do drugs, kids. I mean, I don't know, semen retention and sobriety. I think just sobriety in general, because um, I think semen retention, I'm trying to think. It was around the time I quit alcohol. I think there is definitely a correlation because the addiction to porn and over ejaculation is often one of the core addictions for modern men. And when I reflect back on my life, when I was about 14 years old, 13, 14, that's when I started, masturbating, ejaculating to porn. And that's actually when my mental health and like my sense of balance in my life really started to go downhill. Of course, also going through puberty. Maybe that's just part of being a teenager, but it does seem like there was a correlation there. And that led to a lot of other addictive behaviors. I used to smoke weed every day. I know weed's like relatively harmless, but like it does have a depleting effect on your sexual vitality and your cognition. Alcohol, I used to drink a lot. I drank more when I was 16 years old than I did when I finally turned 21. I was mostly done with it at that point. But once I started practicing semen retention, let go of porn, completely stopped out like it's alcohol, just like done with that shit. I haven't had a single drink since it was like 2014, 15. And the weed habit was a bit slower, but eventually I dropped that too because yeah, I started to. Here's the thing: the reason why people are getting high, like I need to drink, I need to smoke weed, whatever it is, I need to take plant medicines, man. Obviously, there's something like you're stuck in some way. You're blocked off, and what it simply is that there's a constraint, there's a constriction. You developed a blockage in your mind and body that is not allowing you to feel connected to the life force, to the universe, to the moment, to the presence. Like we didn't need this as kids. How many, when I was a 6 year old, I wasn't like, I need to get high. I just need to feel better. No, I feel pretty good. Like I had this massive imagination. My energy channels were wide open. Just my consciousness was very expansive. But through, 9, 10 teenage years, it got beaten out of me a little bit. And that's where most people are at. And so my question becomes, how do you do that? How do you release these blockages and this constraintness without needing to like take a drug? Because they always have negative effects. Nothing's no substance is completely clean. It's costing you something to get high, and whatever. Like if your only vice is like you're smoking weed now and then, like it's better than like you're drinking alcohol every day or you're shooting up heroin. You know what I mean? Like okay, everything's relative, but um, semen retention helps you to refill your bucket, recharge your battery, helps to balance when you're not over ejaculating, not just like wreaking haywire on your brain chemistry, you feel a little more balanced and you're more likely to just feel good. But I would say that even more so when you're doing sexual kung fu, when you're doing qigong meditation, because that's balancing you. Semen retention on its own, it can be yeah, energizing and increasing testosterone, but there's also a tendency to have kind of this like overstimulated, frustrated, over agitated, because if you're not moving that energy, if you're not doing something with it can be unpleasant. So basically, chi became my new drug, and that doesn't have any side effects. It's quite pleasant. I can be high. I can be high as a kite 24/7, and that's why one of the reasons I practice so much because I just feel really, really good when I do it. That's it. Like I was guiding my wife through some qigong. Uh, we're out in the yard, just I'm just like, hey, just here's how to bring earth chi up your feet. Here's how to really open up your foot energy gates and just like pump some earth chi up into your body. And I'm doing it myself because I do it every day. But I'm just like, oh, it feels so ecstatic. Like I just like it feels so good. That earth chi, it's the only drug I need. It's free. There's unlimited amounts of it, and I can do it 24/7. No hangover, no up down. Just it's all good. It's all love, brother. All right. Truth Broadcasting Station says, while retaining, do you think it's harmless being aroused? Oh, do you think it's harmless being around a naked girl and doing third base stuff mainly to her, then catching blue balls now and then. This is a teenager, isn't it? Um, I can't give advice to people under the age of 18. I'm assuming that you're 18 years or older, but um, you probably won't die. Just use protection. Use protection, son. No, it's circulate it through your orbit. The sexual kung fu thing is not that sexual activity is bad or wrong. It's just like learning where it's coming from, learning what was driving you to uh, is two sexual experiences, and is it depleting your energy or is it building your energy? You know what I mean? Okay, guys, probably just a few more questions. B. Harvey's asking, how do you manifest with the self cultivation technique, sending the energy to what you want to manifest? Well, here's the thing: is like what I found is like, you build up your sexual energy, you do whatever you got to do there. No judgments. You get the energy built up, you bring it to your Dantian or your heart center, wherever you want to bring it. But then you do the manifestation thing I talked about earlier. Like that's how I do it, and like me and my partner will do it together. So it's like you don't need to overcomplicate it. Just like when you're doing sexual cultivation, you're storing that charge in your body. So like you're radiating that 24/7. Alfonso Amaral says, the longer you go without ejaculating when self cultivating, doesn't it make it harder to last longer? In general, potentially, yes. This is why there's so many sexual kung fu practices of balancing yourself throughout the process, because the more you're circulating this energy, bringing into the Dantian, bringing into the microcosmic orbit, the Kanan Lee stuff is amazing. That Taoist alchemy stuff for really transmuting that energy into consciousness. The less of a buildup there will be that's remaining in the genitals. Another huge thing here is pelvic floor work, releasing the tension, the pressure from the pelvic floor through the stretching exercises, different pelvic floor release techniques. Prostate massage is also important. Is either just massaging by sitting on a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball, getting a deep release in there. That will also kind of massage the prostate, or direct internal prostate massage, which I do recommend for men. I do it once a week or so, and it really helps with avoiding stagnance and buildup, and keep because the whole thing is the pressure comes from stagnant jing, too much of a buildup down there that has not been integrated into your system, and that'll often tend for you to feel overstimulated and agitated and on edge, more sympathetic nervous system activation. So keeping it balanced, circulating it, keeping the pelvic floor relaxed and supple is going to go a long way with this. Timothy says, hi, can you tell the difference between sensing microcosmic orbit inside or outside the body? Sense is very different for me. Well, I think what you're asking here is basically um, you're feeling the energy body, because if you're feeling it, it's in your body. And what happens is you do these practices, your energy body starts to expand, and you'll feel it as the space beyond your physical body. There's a practice I do called inner dissolving. I was guiding some of the Sex God VIP group through this the other day. Phenomenal practice. That was just yesterday, wasn't it? And like, so this is a practice about like just releasing blockages and like tuning into them, and like seeing like what the emotion, the energy is, and releasing some of these deep seated blockages. And as things start to open up, there's this process when you're going into the body doing these meditative techniques where first there's like the physicality, like, oh, I'm feeling my muscles, tendons, blah, 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 blah. But then things start to open up, and it's not so like physiological or anatomical. You start to just feel fields of energy. Like the first thing is you start to feel like the kind of the electrical feeling of chi moving through your channels. And then you start to feel like this deep magnetic fields of energy. It's hard to put into words. It's a very spacious, but it's beyond the feeling of your physical body, and often that's extending far out. And so that may be what you're talking about, is like where you're feeling your orbit as if it's outside the body, but it's in your energy body, which is bigger than your physical body. So and it is going to feel different. Goodwill's saying, is the orbit something that happens naturally and we simply observe it, or is it something that we must consciously propel and create? Well, it can be both, to be honest, because everyone has the microcosmic orbit. If it's not running, you're not alive. It's the deep channel that's feeding your, it's one of the eight extraordinary meridians, which is feeding the 12 superficial acupuncture meridians, which are literally creating your body. So if it's not moving, you're not alive. So everyone has a microcosmic orbit running, but for a lot of people, it becomes a little congested. There's bottleneck points where things get backed up. It's more of a drip than a free flow for some people. But it can be both. And I've trained in different schools, different systems of cultivation. Some favor more the yin kind of water path, which is based more on observation, which in effect does tend to strengthen things over time. What you observe and give your attention to grows and becomes, naturally has an alchemical effect on it. But there's also more common is the like, I'm gonna fucking move this channel, inject my will, using more of the yi and the intention to run the orbit. And what's also usually creating this is building up the Dan Tian so that you have more chi, you have more thick, kind of consolidated chi that you then bring through the orbit, which makes it a tangible experience of like, oh shit, there's something moving. This red hot thing is like pumping through my orbit. Um, so it could be both. Like just by meditating on the Dantian, just by holding your awareness in the Dantian for, hours and days and months, for a lot of people, the orbit starts to naturally run. Like I found, like one day I was experimenting. I was just when I was doing a lot of Dantian work when I was studying in a school. That my teacher was like, "Do an hour just Dantian breathing every day." I was like, "All right," and I did it, and it lit the fuck up out of my Dantian. Well, I would experiment with, like my Dantian's red hot. I've been building it for an hour in this practice, and then I would move my attention to the either the perineum or the Wei Lu, the tailbone point, and then I would feel this heat all of a sudden just like up my spine, and then it would kind of trickle back down the front of the body. So there's many ways to do it, and there's no single way. It just depends like you and what works for you and what's most balancing. Nostalgia is by Chen. I mean the vapor in the water analogy from Kahn and Lee. Yeah. The vapor. So it depends who you're studying with. There's different takes on this. What this is, people may call it different things. I was completely misinterpreting what you were saying. But one of the terms that I vibe with is that this is yuan qi, Yuan, because fire, water, two kind of polarities make the steam, the third force, which is this neutral force, yuan qi. Talked about a lot of Taoist texts, and there's different takes on what yuan qi is. Yuan, jing qi shen, original qi, original. But my experience and feeling that this is this, it opens a space to a deeper. There's different levels of Kananli even. You know what I mean? There's different kind of there's different depths of working with the water and fire energies. But one of the goals of Taoist alchemy is to open up a portal to source where this unconditioned yuan chi is coming in. This is unpolarized energy. It's not kind of because all this chi we're doing qigong, and like most 99% of systems out there working with prenatal energy that's already manifest. It's already out here, and we could say it already has a certain conditioning to it, which can be a certain contamination to it. So it's already has an agenda in some way. We're just kind of recycling this versus bringing energy directly in from source, which is completely unconditioned, completely unimprinted, and then it becomes whatever we need within our system. All I know is when I do that practice, I feel really, really balanced and creative and rejuvenated. Okay, 4269 is asking, when practicing the microcosmic orbit, do you place your tongue in a particular place? I read not to place it on the roof. I read not to place it at the roof of your mouth, not to place it at the roof of your mouth, but not sure how true this is. I've only ever heard to place the tongue on the roof of the mouth. All the different many different systems and schools I've seen of the microcosmic orbits always tongue on the roof of the mouth. So I don't see any reason not to do that. And it's just like behind the front teeth. Like if you're saying the letter L, right there, that's where your tongue goes. Simple. Because the tongue creates the circuit. It closes the circuit. So like there is certain practices where they say remove your tongue, maybe like when you're dropping it down the front channel. But the simplest thing is just keep your tongue up there. And I use the mewing tongue position. So my tongue is always on the roof of my mouth now. Dr. Mike Mew Orthotropics. Sahil, what's up? Says I started practicing, but after 4 to 5 days of practicing, I started to feel pain on the right side of my lower belly. Should I be concerned? Stop doing it, but the pressure gone and pain is gone. Well, what were you practicing? I need to know what you were practicing. Chaz is asking, can we help to remind our feminine partner to feel more relaxed during sex to enhance the experience for both of us through certain techniques? I notice she often gets a lot of tension. Yeah. So, well, the best thing to do is there's a lot of nuance here because it's simple to be like, hey, fucking relax. But that may, that's not always, sometimes it makes them feel like they're doing something wrong. So, what might be better is like take a deep breath with me and just focus on melting from your head, relax the shoulders, relax the whole body. So guide them through a process instead of just saying, "Hey, you need to relax." That's just going to make her feel like she's doing something wrong. She's going to get more self conscious, probably tense up more. I also encourage, like, if she tends to be really tense, then give her a massage. Give her a tantric massage. Like, um, my wife, she has a lot of tension in her upper body. Like when she's been, working and stuff. Like I need to get her out of her head. And if I just say, "Hey, you need to relax," like it's not going to go well. So like, massaging her temples, her head, the whole head area. The shoulders, upper back is a great place as well. Foot massage, and that. So it's like you do something because I really feel that for you as a man, it's your job to like lead, not just like say, hey, you're supposed to be relaxing, but like lead is in like guide them through the process, guide them into, um, guide either putting your hands on her and physically and kind of energetically helping her to release the tension, encouraging her through some kind of process in a way that doesn't make her feel like she's doing something wrong so that she can be more in her body. It can be simple as guiding her through deep breathing or something like that, or inner smiling together. So yeah, that's going to be very helpful. Okay, so heal semen retention. You're getting pain in the lower right side of the belly. Is could be like it could be that you have. It's a more elaborate thing. Like, I'm not qualified to give medical advice, so you should speak to your doctor, etc. But it could be many things. Could be many things here, but something I'm going to speak on is that there's often, so this could be lower right side of the belly, could be psoas muscle, could be some of the different like, tendons, tissues in this area, which connect to the pelvic floor. So something that's common is when men start doing semen retention, especially if there's a lot of tension in the pelvic floor already, you're building up more of this sexual energy, this gene. And if you're feeling a lot of like arousal or it sounds like you may have some stuck energy in the pelvic floor region. And so that's all becoming exacerbated by semen retention. So I recommend that you follow some of my pelvic floor. I have a 12-minute guided pelvic floor routine for stretching on my YouTube channel. Do that every day. See if it helps. Do like some belly massage techniques. Like look up Chine Song, ChineItsang. Oh, yeah, easy. Just look basically like really like pressing your fingers into your belly, massaging around, loosening that stuck jing up may support this. It could be psoas, it could be all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I can only give so much advice, because I'm not in person and I'm not a physical therapist. So hope that helps. Chosen one, yeah, you can do chanting with the microcosmic orbit. You can chant with your tongue on the roof of the mouth. I did it just now. Yeah, toning with the voice is a cool way to potentially you can vibrate different levels of the body. Like there's techniques to vibrate the dantian. Uh, at some of my retreats, I've taught techniques that use sound to vibrate the meridians to clear them. That's pretty cool too. Okay, last question. Thank you, Connor Argillo. Uh, do you believe that if you retain your seed, Rich Wealthy's asking, do you believe if you retain your seed while having sex that you are still able to get the most of the sexual energy up, instead of just not having sex and only retaining? Because there are people that say that if you have sex, eventually your body is preparing your seed to ejaculate and the part of your seed isn't able to raise up the spine, blah, blah, blah. Okay, okay. Yeah, basically, do you get more energy from just celibacy or more energy from sex? And that? Well, this is kind of more like the Buddhist, some maybe Hindu model of like basically any sexual thought stirs, brings your spirit into manifestation, the physical, creates the sperm. So like sperm isn't really just sitting there latent. It's once you become aroused that magically your all of a sudden your spirit turns into sperm and then ejaculates out and then it's gone. And I personally don't vibe with this model. I don't find it to be necessarily true. From my experience, I generate a lot of I've had periods of celibacy and I've had periods of, sexual cultivation with a partner. And I will say that I feel a lot more balanced. I'm generating a lot more energy when I'm having sex and doing sexual practices and, retaining my semen throughout it. So I think it's solid and fantastic. It's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah, yeah. If you're doing Om, yeah. Well, if you're doing Om, that's a specific practice, and you may not, don't over worry about it. Okay, ask me how much red meat do you recommend? Well, it depends. My genetics, it's gonna be like diet isn't a one size fits all thing. Okay, what works for me may not work for you, but I've been eating about a pound or more of red meat, ground organic grass fed ground beef. I do 80-20, more fatty meat. I've been doing about a pound a day, and I feel great from that. But some people do more. Some people, I used to only eat like small amounts of meat. Like I heard this thing that you can only digest 4 ounces of meat, and like for years I was like, oh, it's true. I was mostly plant based at that point. And looking back, like, yeah, I'm a lot more vital now. I will just say that. Syed, I think that semen retention leads to better sperm motility because when you're over ejaculating, your sperm doesn't develop or mature as well. But a caveat here being like, if you're ejaculating once a year, like I think that there's a certain balance point for sperm health and even endocrine system optimization as well. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off. Thanks for joining me. Always good to connect with you guys. Hope you have a great weekend. What else can I say? I'm gonna be in China, so I'm gonna have some great stories when I come back. If I make it back from the far east, it's gonna be pretty epic. If I don't, I might be sleeping in a cave with immortals, so I may not come back. Who knows? But much love. Keep it fresh out there, guys, and I'll see you soon.